Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. My name is Callie, and this is another weekend of Clarinets, Cats, and Coffee. So on my analytics page, I've noticed that I've had a few more views on my bass clarinet videos. So I thought that I would make another one for you guys out there so my bass clarinet players can have something to practice as well. One of the most difficult things on bass clarinet is playing over the break and high notes and whatever. And some of those things we can fix. Some of those things are not. For example, if the instrument is out of repair. So I'm going to go through my list of 10 things you can check off to see if it helps your high range on bass clarinet. Before we jump into that, if you like what I am doing here, please consider supporting my channel through either Patreon or channel memberships here on YouTube. It has been such a great experience over the past 3 years getting to know everybody on Patreon and on YouTube memberships, and I look forward to meeting more of you. So thank you all who already support my channel or who have supported my channel in the past. I greatly appreciate it. All right, so let's jump right in. Number one, the biggest, most important thing is how much mouthpiece you're taking in. So a good rule of thumb is to take a look at your mouthpiece and your reed. So if you hold your mouthpiece up to a light, you're gonna see the tip of the mouthpiece and the reed do not meet, but there is a point slightly further down where the mouthpiece curves into the reed. That point on the reed is where your contact point should be with your bottom lip. Some mouthpieces, that is called the facing. So some mouthpieces have a shorter facing, others have a longer facing. Mine has a somewhat long facing. It's kind of in the middle, I guess. It's a pretty comfortable facing for me to play bass clarinet on. So if you guys are squeaking and squawking and having trouble in the upper register, just check to make sure that you have the right amount of mouthpiece in your mouth. Second big thing, you're playing with the wrong kind of reed for your mouthpiece. Usually when you buy a mouthpiece, you can ask, or you can even look up, for example, like Van Doren, you can look up all of their mouthpieces and they have recommended reed strengths that generally sound pretty good with the mouthpiece. So that is a really good starting point. However, if you find that your sound is really bright and very buzzy, and if you blow too much air, the sound just stops, that's a good sign that your reed is too soft. And if you go the opposite direction, you'll know if your reed is too hard when you go to blow and there's lots of air, but nothing comes out at all. And you're like wrecking your core trying to get the sound out, okay? So a good place to start is whatever the manufacturer's recommended reed strength is for the mouthpiece. The third big thing is if your mouthpiece is chipped, scratched, dinged up, 30 years old, if the tip is worn away, it's probably no good. You could go to a mouthpiece craftsman and have them reface it for you and make it as good as new if the core sound is okay. But if your mouthpiece is in bad shape, you're gonna have to do something. So either buy a new one or get it refaced. A good way to test that is to just try a different mouthpiece. Or just buy the one I have, a B40 Van Doren. I like it a lot. The fourth thing is you are voicing incorrectly for the high range on bass clarinet. So if you normally play B-flat clarinet and you're switching over to the bass for the first time, or you're somebody who mostly plays B-flat clarinet, me, and you sometimes play bass, it can be a little bit of an adjustment to get used to the voicing. In general, bass clarinet, the voicing is lower than on regular clarinet. A good way to practice the correct amount of air is to do register skips. So you pick a low note, you pick the lower register of whatever the high note is. I'm gonna pick low B natural to F sharp because I really hate F sharp. So we'll see how this sounds, but what you want to do is try to create the most supported sound in the low register and try to keep that sort of quality of sound in the upper register without getting, too contorted or strange. All right. So that's all you do. You do register skips like that, and you try to solidify your register changes. The fifth thing, you are too tense in your throat. Did you know that constricting your throat like you're going is actually really bad for your bass clarinet playing and clarinet playing in general? So be very careful. Make sure that you are supporting from down here and not pushing, constricting, or whatever from up here in the throat. So I try to imagine, you know, just kind of relaxing. You can just take a nice big breath and try to let everything sort of relax, feel the back of the throat sort of open up. Sometimes I'll make what I call elephant noises too. That kind of helps everything open up in the back as well. So keep the throat nice and open and relaxed, most importantly. The next thing is air support is poor. Low notes, actually not even low notes, just kind of mid-range notes right below the break are very easy to get out on bass clarinet. You could just go and like the note will come out. So make sure that you're always using good air support, even in the low register, to try to help prep yourself for being over the break, because the over the break is really going to require lots of air support. So if you're not already used to taking really big, deep breaths, I recommend taking belly breaths. So breathing in with an O sound or a home word in reverse can really help fill things up to the bottom, and then you just relax out and blow a lot of wind to really support the sound all the way through your phrases. All right, number 7 is not your fault. You may have leaky pads on your instrument. The only way to really find out if you have very slow leaks creeping up is to take it to your repair technician. When an instrument gets leaky pads, it just like slowly becomes more and more difficult to play, and it's not going to just stop working. It's just going to become really, really difficult. So make sure that you keep your pads and everything in good repair. So it's a good idea to have your repair technician check it out a couple times a year. Okay, the 8th thing, this is also not your fault. On many bass clarinets, there is a double register key mechanism. So there are 2 register keys on mine, up here and right here. So back in the old days, you actually had 2 thumb keys and you like had to switch between the 2 when you got to certain registers on the instrument. But now they're automatic. The problem with the automatic switch is sometimes a spring will come out of adjustment or a bridge key. Did you know these bridge keys down here are really important for this stuff up here? So first thing you should do, make sure your bridge keys are aligned. Second thing, just make sure that the right register keys are opening when they're supposed to, okay? So on my instruments, that means when I'm playing, well, this is kind of heavy, okay. When I'm playing like B, C, C sharp, D, E flat, they all use, which one? The lower register key. You can't see that, but anyway. So those all use the lower register key. Once I get to E, oh, it switches, and I can feel, like a lot of bass clarinets, there's a lot of resistance right here on the ring finger, and that's because that's where the double register mechanism switches over, right? So you lift this up, and the top register key is open instead, and the bottom one is closed. So sometimes that top register key will only open a little, and the bottom one will not quite close all the way. So then you have really resistant, fuzzy kind of sounding upper notes, and they don't come out as clear, or any number of other things. So first thing you should do for that is just make sure, like I said, the bridge is lined up. If that's lined up, make sure, I didn't mention this before, make sure the top bridge is lined up where the neck is, okay? Not all bass clarinets have this. Some of them vent on the body of the instrument, so you just kind of have to make sure you are familiar and intimately acquainted with the workings of your instrument. And then two other things that you can change in your own playing that I forgot to mention. So number 9 is when we go over the breaks, sometimes we don't really know what's happening with our index finger, and for whatever reason, when we reach up to the register key, our index finger slips down. If your index finger slips off of this tiny little hole here, your high notes will be very difficult to play. The only time you need that vented is when you're playing over the altissimo break, okay? So that's like your altissimo register key. And then the last thing, and I think this is something that everybody knows, we're clamping. You're clamping too hard on the mouthpiece and the reed, and you're just closing it off. So one thing you can do is increase the angle of your mouthpiece in your mouth. So I kind of tend to have more success if I angle my instrument in and the mouthpiece is a little bit more of an angle instead of straight in. So that helps me blow straight against the reed, and it makes my high notes sound a little better. So you can try that. It also gives me a better leverage against my top teeth, and I'm not less likely to like drop the instrument or whatever, and it doesn't slip out. All right, so if you guys have anything to add to this, please leave them in the comments below. I know there are lots of great players here, and I really enjoy learning from you guys as well. So thank you for your input. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Oh, by the way, the etude that I played for you at the beginning is from the Magnani Intermediate Studies, and they're a lot of fun on both clarinet and bass clarinet. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend, a nice week next week, and as always, happy practicing.